Thank you, Your Worship. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December 6th committee meeting. I am Jennifer Connor, Clerk of Ramara Township. I'll begin with roll call of council. Mayor Clark.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Bell.
Present.
Councillor Snatch.
Present.
Councillor Fisher is absent. Councillor Tuyu. Present. Councillor Goff.
Present.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Thank you.
This meeting is being streamed live on the Township of Ramara YouTube channel. Be advised that by attending a public meeting of the Committee of the Whole of the Township of Ramara, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded, and they will form part of the recording. The chair, CAO, and/or clerk have the discretion and authority to terminate or interrupt the live streaming in exceptional circumstances where the content of debate is considered inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate behavior and/or comments.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a disclosure of pecuniary interest by any member of council on the committee? I don't believe so. Looking okay. Next, I have deputations and presentations. We have none. Protective Services, which is Councillor Bell, but I was talking to Councillor Bell before the meeting and she has some motions, so I will chair the portion so that she can enter any motions. So the first one I have is bylaw enforcement, that we received the bylaw enforcement department third quarter CD 25-24 report as information. So I'll put it on the floor. Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Goff. Councillor Bell?
I didn't have anything on this one. It's the next one more.
Oh, you're okay on this one? Oh, say, all right. So just to receive the report, any comments? All in favor? That is carried. So the other one is on the parking, and I'll read the recommendation, but then we'll have some discussion on it. That we receive report CD 2624 Lagoon City on-street and municipal parking lot parking control options as information, and that we select option, and we're looking for an option here, for the regulation of the parking in Lagoon City and the operation of the municipal parking lot at Lagoon City Public Beach on Lake Avenue. So I won't get a mover in a second here because we're looking for options here. So let's discuss the options. Councillor Bell.
Thank you. So the option that I have a motion written, but obviously we'll have discussion first and then I can put the motion on the floor. But I think based on the variety of feedback that we've received up to and including the parking lot engagement that we just received, I think that what the best option that we can choose, there's going to be two pieces to it, obviously. And I think that for summer parking, the municipal parking area should mirror the kiteboarding. So permit parking only over the summer months. And so it was that Thursday before the long weekend and then Thursday after the long weekend that access for kiteboarding kicks in. So you could have parking permitted throughout the rest of the year. And then during those prohibited months from kiteboarding, also prohibiting any parking. So over the course of the summer, it would limit the parking area to resident access only, which would allow for all of the residents who want to access the park and playground areas to be able to do that, whether they're in or outside of Lagoon City. And then on the second piece, that we would designate the parking area at Brecon Ballpark for use during the winter snowmobiling season. And then we could do that from like December 15th to March 31st, so that trucks and trailers can park up here and then make their way. I mean, typically what snowmobilers or ice fisher people, I guess, would do is you would offload and then go park. So, I mean, I think that would be an option, and it will get the vehicles off the street at all times. And also the no stopping part aspect of it down in the cul-de-sac. And that would bring the safety that we need in that area.
A question on that, maybe Josh, we would allow snowmobiles to use the bike trail portion, would not the walking trail beside the fourth concession?
Yeah, that'd be permitted for motor vehicles, just ATVs. We don't permit on trails.
Right. So in the wintertime, they could use that to get down there, and then from the last mile, doesn't hurt a snowmobile if you go slow to go a mile on pavement. I know guys that did it all the time. You just drive slow and out to the lake. So that's not a bad suggestion. Well, you got to have a license, and insurance. Other questions or comments? Councillor Goff.
With the changing in the summertime to a resident only permit parking, how much revenue are we losing for honk?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Goss. So I just pulled that up. It's a timely question. So in 2024, there was $10,865 made in the Lagoon City lot. So that revenue would be lost.
Mhm. Any other? Councillor Goff, carry on.
The way the parking is set up right now, we have the hog lot, and also there is permit parking for residents along the road there, right? Am I not? Long Lake by the park and down, I guess it's Poplar.
So there is, through the chair to Councillor Goff, there is parking restrictions on the bend around the park. As you proceed further down Lake Avenue, heading towards Simcoe Road, then there is some parking available if you have a residence parking pass. And then there is some spots on Poplar itself, but around the bends and down near the cul-de-sac by Pier 1, there are parking restrictions there, obviously for flow of traffic reasons. But there is some availability of on-street, but it's all resident permit parking.
Follow up?
Yeah, if we were to have in the honk parking lot there, designated spaces for residents. And still continue with the honk application.
Through the chair to Councillor Goff, it is possible. It's difficult with an unpaved lot. So obviously we can't put any markings on the ground to differentiate between the two different types of areas. It would all have to be done through signage. So whether that's permanent signage that we would have infrastructure install in the lot, or using the cement bases to identify these specific spots are for honk only, and or I guess you would have to say or for a pass, and these ones are resident only. Honk is not available on this side type of thing. So just some added costs for some new signage, but not ideal without it being paved with markings on the ground.
Another follow up? Yes, carry on.
Now with the paved area by the mailboxes that has signs that say 15-minute stopping, would that be, could we put 3 parking spots in there for resident only?
So currently there are a few available spots on that side if people stay away from the mailboxes. So residents do park in there sometimes with their parking passes, but we could clearly define that. There's not a lot of room over there for vehicles to be able to come in, get their mail, come out, flow of the vehicles. It's pretty restricted.
I just hate to lose the opportunity of having $10,000 more revenue coming into the municipality when budgets are tight. And I think we have to look at any opportunity to.
I understand your concern, but on the same token, I know the limitations of that beach. And that's the problem we've always had down there. It's not designed to be a park. It's not like Coochiching Park in Aurelia. All our good parkland is owned by the province of Ontario, whether it be Mara Park or McCrae Park. We really just have road allowances and small little beaches, and this one isn't much bigger than a road allowance. I think it's 90 feet where a road allowance is like 66. So our trouble has always been we don't have a lot of access for our locals at the waterfront. Now, my question would be, by doing that local only, are we exposing ourselves to any kind of litigation?
I'd have to defer that to legal counsel, your worship, in terms of if we are or not. Some municipalities have implemented resident only. It was certainly a practice during COVID to restrict movement of people within the townships and municipalities. Even Tiny Township has gone back to a paid system where the parking lots are paid or permit, and on street there's some availability for residents only. So there's a mix everywhere we seem to go.
Like kind of, if you go way back to Lagoon City in the golden days, I believe it was dedicated to the people of Ramara Township is what this land was actually originally dedicated to, not to the public, but to the people of Ramara Township. So might be an interesting if we end up down that road, because I'm leaning towards what Councillor Bell is saying, that it just be residents only, just because of the limited space we have. Councillor Snutch, you had a comment, I think?
So I just wanted to clarify what Councillor Goff was saying. So if you did resident only paid parking, is that what you're thinking?
No, resident permit parking.
Permit parking, okay,
Right, so that they have a designated spot that they can
Yes.
go to the
with
beach
no fee.
with no fee.
Thank you.
Much like what's up at the trailhead.
Right, but we wouldn't allow any, is I think what Councillor Bell's saying is no paid parking. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah. So what I was recommending is precisely what residents have been asking for, which is residents in and out of Union City. I'll reiterate, but that municipal parking area is for resident permit parking only during those summer months. So from the Thursday of the long weekend in May until the Thursday of the long weekend after August 31st, the September long weekend, like so. Over the proper high season summer months, it's resident permit parking. And then families can access that beach and playground area, and then going to it could be open after that. I understand what you're saying, Councillor Goff, and that was one of my suggestions was, can we designate so many spots for honk and so many for resident, but without surfacing the parking lot? That's where the difficulty lies. I did speak to infrastructure briefly about what municipalities are allowed to do with parking. As far as like with the Highway Traffic Act and those other pieces of what can you do. And my understanding between speaking to infrastructure and bylaw is we can restrict it to resident permit over that time period if we choose. Many of the urban areas still in the south part of the province do that in their sort of downtown core areas that are in proximity to their marinas or waterfront areas. So yeah, it would, and I guess I mean, my motion has more specifically written out, but the other thing was in the wintertime, you would still have your access to the snowmobile trails on Laguna Parkway. I didn't say that, but that would of course remain.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Goff.
I still would like to have maybe a legal opinion as to whether or not we don't open up a can of worms with this. Because public's public and we're basically denying access with restricting parking to the public.
Well, there would be time to get that before next spring anyway, to get that legal. If we passed it today and it's a new calendar year, if we found out we couldn't, we could rescind at that time. Could we not, Madam Clerk?
That is correct, your worship.
Because again, we were still going to have parking for snowmobiles somewhere here, especially I do like the idea of the ball diamond, a sign, something directing folks up, because obviously we're not using the ball diamond a lot in the wintertime. Even the playground gets lightly used in the cold months. So any other comments? Councillor Goff, and then I'm going to put it to the floor.
Ball diamond usually plowed out.
Yes, the ball diamond's on a regular schedule because of the dog park. The dog park is still used year round, so.
Okay, my only concern is that most ice fishermen and people that go snowmobiling are out there before daylight, hours before.
Yeah, what we found in the past, ice fishermen typically show up between 4 or 5 a.m. So there would be some issues with plowing in the winter. There could be some concerns of snowmobiles going down the roads at that early morning as well, but it's something that could be determined at a trial essentially.
Ready? Councillor Snutch.
To Josh, so most of these trailers will be truck and trailer. So how do they, is there enough, do they have to park horizontal to the road? Or are they gonna be parking vertical to the road? Because I don't think you'd get anybody, you wouldn't get a second row of.
No,
Vehicles in
it'd
there.
be single file parking. Essentially, if they nose into the ball diamond, unload your snowmobiles towards the road there and then back out when you're done.
So how many spots are there?
You'd probably get 15, 20, I think. Like we turn tractor trailers around in that parking lot because there is a backup offload area for the haulage that's currently ongoing. We haven't used it quite as much this year, but it is large enough to turn a tractor trailer around in that parking lot. So there should be lots of room for snowmobile parking.
And then we need signage in that to direct everybody how to park, because when it's snow, they're gonna start parking horizontal and then the whole thing will jam up.
Yeah, correct. There'll need to be some sort of signage put up to direct that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we've had a discussion. Counselor Bell, can I have your motion, please?
Thank you. Well, and then I mean, I wrote the motion without some of the discussion we've had, so I'll say it and we can amend it. Like I'm open to whatever discussion, but I'll say what I wrote and it takes a minute. So whereas the Township of Ramara adopted motion CW 6923 on March 27 of 2023, which included the implementation of a waterfront parking strategy and resident parking passes, and directed further consideration of a long-term parking strategy during the ice fishing season to alleviate safety concerns and mitigate snow clearance. And CW 8423 on April 24, 23, directing that staff prepare a report for June 23 with possible municipal parking lots during the ice fishing season. Whereas the Township of Ramara adopted motion CW 4124 and CW 3924 on March 25, 24, which included implementation of a waterfront parking strategy and resident parking passes, and directed staff prepare a report regarding the expansion of the parking lot by the public beach in Lagoon City, supporting seasonal requirements, including during the ice fishing season. And whereas the addition of a playground and rehabilitation of Lagoon City Public Beach has resulted in increased usage, creating challenges for residents, including safety concerns, trespassing, public indecency, littering, and lack of access to Canada Post mailboxes. And whereas staff report ID 5424 presented November 6, 24 captured that local residents in Lagoon City and the greater Ramara community have voiced significant concerns regarding congestion, inadequate parking, and the inability to access public beach and park amenities intended for their use. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Ramara designate the Lake Avenue Municipal Parking Lot as resident parking pass holders only from the Thursday prior to the long weekend in May through to the Thursday following Labor Day weekend in September. Designate Laguna Parkway on the east side from Concession Road 5 road allowance to 145 Laguna Parkway and the municipal parking lot at the Brecken Ballpark for parking to facilitate access to Lake Simcoe for winter recreation between December 15 and March 31 each year. And direct staff to install clear signage at the Lake Avenue Municipal Parking Lot indicating its designation as a resident-only parking area during the specified period. Install signage at the Brecken Ballpark designating as recreation use during that specified time period. Ensure appropriate enforcement measures are in place to uphold the resident-only designation, including regular bylaw enforcement patrols and issuance of penalties for non-compliance.
I think,
And
go ahead.
That's, yeah, and then just into, and then review. So then I guess we could play with the review because we're talking about a trial period on the Brecken Ballpark. So we could maybe play with that. And obviously I can send this to the clerks.
Yeah, well, it's there before it be resolved is the actual item, and you understood it, did you not? Yeah, no. Can I move by Counselor Bell? I want a seconder to put that on the floor. Okay, it's on the floor. So on that, any amendments to that?
I'd like to, yeah, I think there was just a little bit too much information in there as far as getting into the policing and all that stuff. I just want a simple, straightforward, what we're doing with the parking lots motion. And I think that's where I stand. I don't want to get too much into the, fine details of it and managing staff.
Counselor Snutch, and then we'll shorten it down. Yep.
I just have a problem with getting a legal opinion after. I don't know why we wouldn't just get an legal opinion now so we consider. Chances are it's not going to be a straightforward legal opinion. Chances are it's going to have a whole bunch of these gray areas in, and I would like to consider all those at the same time. That would be like us driving down to Q Beach in Toronto and a sign being their residents only. I think there is a legal problem, but I'd like to get that legal opinion before we do this.
CEO Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, a good point, Councillor Snutch. Based on the sequence of meetings of council, there is a special that's identified on January the 6th. Should council, as the mayor indicated, decide to endorse a bylaw, by that time you would have a detailed legal opinion and opportunity to review it. However, between now and the 6th of January, you won't have an opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to validate whatever the decision is with the legal opinion, or wait until January the 6th. That's all.
Well, and I believe in the motion, and Councillor Bell, you can correct me if I'm wrong. there is parking for the snowmobiles in the winter months, which is what we have to deal with right now, where it's already stated, but we're adding the Brecken Park. And the restrictions on the parking would actually not take effect till after the windsurfers in the summer months. So there would be plenty of time, I would think, to get the legal opinion if we decided to proceed in that direction. John, I'll get on that. Did I get that correct, Councillor Bell? It's the real restriction happens in the summer.
Yes, for that piece of it. And then for the snowmobiling aspect of it, we haven't yet designated the Brecken Ball Park.
Right.
And we haven't actually we've designated Laguna Parkway for the honk parking in the summertime.
Mhm.
And we expanded the parking zone that could be used, but we haven't ever really designated it during the winter time. Like there hasn't been a specific, but that is a place where, because obviously that's where the trail comes in.
Yeah.
So if we just maybe were able to clarify that section of Laguna, because it probably could realistically be down Laguna and then down Paradise in the winter time without causing any issues for access to the snowmobile trails. And we've never really like written that in. I know we have it written in the summer language, but not the winter.
John, response on that?
Yeah, through to you, your worship. So it doesn't require an amendment to the bylaw. It basically requires signage to be put in place to designate whatever council desires. So if the desire is to have Laguna Parkway and a piece of Paradise as permitted parking for snowmobilers, then we just need to put up the signs to say this is a permitted area to park. So that's the only thing. We don't need to bring forward an amendment to the bylaw.
Yeah, so there's no amendment to the bylaw for that because it was already allowed. We're just clarifying where it is.
Correct.
Right, and the real restriction is coming next spring and we can get a legal opinion before then.
Correct. And again, it's just a matter of changing the signage in the lot. If the sign says as you drive in, resident permit parking only, then that's what's required. There's no amendment to the bylaw required for that either.
All right, it's just a signage change. Councillor Goff, comment and then we'll.
I know we're doing some sort of winter parking restrictions. I just don't think there's enough room because I've seen last year, almost every year from the intersection of Simcoe Road to all the way down Lakeshore, almost to the second concession with cars parked on one side of the road to go ice fishing. It all depends on the weather in the year and where the ice is. So we're still going to have issues down in that intersection.
Through to Councillor Goff, through the chair, there's the possibility, if that's an access point that's going to be utilized by ice fishermen, they're gonna park there. It's just a matter of proactive enforcement to get down there and ticket the vehicles that are in contravention of the bylaw. So that whole area is permit only. So if it's a permitted parking spot and they don't have a permit, then they're subject to a ticket for failing to display a permit. If it's a non-permitted parking zone, then they're going to get a ticket for that. So it's just a matter of having our officers down there to check those zones appropriately.
Go ahead.
Okay, now is this the only time we're going to be dealing with winter enforcement? Because I have another area of the municipality that was brought up to me that they want to have the permit parking only. You've removed it last year, and they're finding that they're being inundated again with snowmobiles, trucks and trailers for ice fishermen and want to have the permit only parking put in place in that area as well. That's around the Glen Rest Beach area.
Right. Let's stick with Lagoon City to start with, and then we can discuss that one after if that's, Tony, go ahead. Fire Chief.
Thank you, your worship. Through the chair. I was just hoping that we could make a small housekeeping amendment to that, and just that I noticed the date on that was until March 31st. I was wondering if it might be more beneficial to amend that to March 15th when fishing huts come off. And the only reason is because, and this is directly related to emergency response, is that we see an uptick on going and getting people that have gone through on snow machines or other vehicles after that period of time to get the ice huts off. So if we could amend it, that might prevent promoting people going out with their snow machines.
Okay. Yeah. You're fine with that amendment?
Yeah, I had March 15th at first, and then I changed it, and I don't know why I changed it, because I really did have March 15th at first. But I think right now, Sorry,
Yes, go ahead.
what I'm hearing is we still want to work on this a little bit. So can we just defer at this point and just defer it till January 6th? I can send Jennifer what I have right now. And then that
Yep.
gives staff the chance to look at it and maybe change the wording a little bit and architect it a little bit cleaner. Because this was a big agenda, so I was doing a lot at once. So I know it needs some work. And then so if I could just motion for a deferral until
right.
our January 6th meeting.
And then we can have it. Yeah, everybody's fine. The mover and seconder is fine with a deferral, so we'll do that. Defer or refer? I think it's refer, isn't it? Okay. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I think that is the right solution after
Yep.
the conversation, where Councillor Snutch wanted to go about 10 minutes ago.
All right, so that's what we'll do. We'll get a legal opinion, get everything in. We'll bring it in January. All fine with that, moving it to January 9th? Yep, that is done. So then this report will come back. And then I can now, I think, turn it back to you, Sherry, because I think Councillor Goff had a concern on the parking as well. So I will hand the meeting over to you now, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have completed those two items. And then what I'll ask is if there's any unfinished or new business, and there happens to be some. Go ahead, Councillor Goff.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. My question is directed to Mr. Popple. With winter parking restrictions, I have residents that have made it very commented in their discussion that they would like to have permit parking reinstated along Glenrest Beach and Amelia Drive. Last year, I know when you lifted a lot of the parking by permit restrictions along the waterfront, there was a YouTuber that was stating everywhere in Ramara Township you could go park to go ice fishing. And one of the places that was Glenrest Beach area. And the people down along Glenrest are fed up with the traffic and the restrictions on being able to drive their cars past all these vehicles. So I was hoping that maybe we could add that restriction, but put that restriction back in place. I don't know if I have a seconder for that motion.
I would second it, but I would suggest that we refer it to the same thing, those January
Yep.
9th, right?
So it gives you some time to work on that, Mr. Popple.
Yeah, not a problem through the chair to Councillor Goff. And any area of the township can be added back into the permit parking requirement, or any new areas of the township where we're seeing issues. It's just a matter of council passing the motion to designate as permit parking only, and then the signage being reinstated in those zones so that any motorist traveling into that area has to pass a sign stating what the restrictions are.
And Mr. Mayor, you probably have heard a number of questions over by Bell Harbor.
Yep, same area. Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was sending my motion to Jennifer. I was agreeing with you, so I was not paying attention. I'm very sorry. So we're going to also defer. So what's your motion then? How do you want to motion it? Just the discussion on parking at Val Harbor,
And get a report and move that to the.
Glenrest Beach until January 6th. So all in favor?
Are we looking, excuse me, just for clarification, is council looking for a staff report on that, or just that the item be a verbal discussion with direction at the January 6th meeting?
I think we're looking for the legality of whether we could do it or not. So that's the only thing we'd need in the report, John. I think for that last one.
No, through the chair or through to you. No, that would simply be, we could add it into that report that's coming back. And if council desires that to be a resident only parking zone, then that's, we don't need a legal opinion for that.
Okay. Clear.
So all good? Okay, all in favor? So that's carried, and then I passed. Oh, was there any other unfinished or new? Nope. So back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. And now I'll turn it over to Environmental Services. Councillor, to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There is one item on the agenda today, 5.1, Ramara tree planting in conjunction with the LSRCA, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority, ID 5624. Recommendation that we receive report ID 5624, Ramara tree planting in conjunction with the LSRCA, and that we authorize the Director of Infrastructure to permit the proposed planting on the municipal properties as shown in the attached planting plans. Can somebody please put this on the floor? Councillor Goff, thank you, and Deputy Mayor Bell. Josh, I think this is fantastic. Did you want to talk about the program before opening up to discussion?
Sure. Thanks, Councillor Tuju. So we've been working with the LSRCA for just under a year now. And it came up in past discussions about tree planting, especially with all the ash borer. We've had to take a lot of trees down, and we've had numerous concerns from residents. What are we going to do to replant? So LSRCA approached the township, myself and former CAO Drinkwalter, with some plans to try to start replanting some areas. We looked at essentially every township property that was deemed parkland. And from that list, we shortlisted it down to these locations. So their plan right now is to plant it spring 2025. So this coming spring. They want to work with the township as well as with volunteers to try to bring volunteers out to help plant these trees. There's no cost to the township for this. They're going to be securing all the funding and everything for this tree planting. So in my opinion, it's a win-win. It's a big benefit for the township. So I just wanted to send the plans to council. We've distributed through internally already. If there is any concerns with any of the areas we looked at, but if there's any concerns that you guys can see, if you could let us know, and we can alter any plans as required.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree. That's exciting. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Goff.
This is directed through the chair to Josh. I look at the one parcel and I noticed that there's like 100 tamarack that are going in. Why are we planting tamarack? Tamarack is the most ugly tree in the winter time.
So these trees were all recommended by the LSRCA. They looked at native trees that would be the best for the areas, as well as fill in certain areas. So I didn't have any input on what trees they were planting. It was all recommended by the LSRCA.
Can we change any of their recommendations or ask them to?
We can inquire for sure. Yeah.
Okay, could we?
Yeah.
Regarding the tamarack, because right.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Bell?
Thank you. And also through to Josh. First of all, I want to say thank you, because this conversation actually started in 23, and it took a while to get it moving forward to where it got to the point that infrastructure and CAO were working together to get it done. So it's been a long process. And I guess, and I think it's great. And I'm really glad that the LSRCA is coming through for us on it. And I know that we're going to need that volunteer component. So I guess, and this is obvious, but just that we reach out to the Lagoon City Community Association, but really early, because what I'm learning is their calendar of events is so full that we couldn't even plan to do the Earth Day cleanup last year because there was just no time and I couldn't get the volunteers. So if we can reach out very early, I know it's going to be hard to do based on, weather, but maybe try to plan it for June. I don't know when the proper time is, but just give them enough notice that they can pull volunteers together. That's piece one. And then also just on the communication front, I know that the people closest to the beaches are very concerned. They've been asking, as you know, for months, what will it look like? And so if we can just do some communication, maybe out early enough that they can visualize what the sets of trees look like together, because they're, of course, worried about their view. So they want the trees, but they also want their view. And so I think if we could find a way to engage early, just so that people know what the expectation is that they're going to see out there, as well as how can they help and when.
Yeah, for sure. We can inquire with the LSRCA when they anticipate to start planning. And yeah, weather is going to be a big factor, and tree delivery. But we'll inquire with them. As far as people seeing the plans, they're on the agenda, so they're public. So anybody can see these plans at this point now. Yeah, well, I'll inquire with them to see if we can set up a date early on to figure out when we can start planting.
Thanks. Go ahead, Councillor Snutch.
Josh, how tall will the trees be when they're planted?
So for the most part, 90% of it is all saplings. So you're looking 6 to maybe 10 inches. There is some potted trees. They were more for the Ramara Center to try to get quicker establishment for shade trees in the area. Some of them are up to 6-7 feet tall. So
Okay. Second question, the north private beach, is that considered municipal property?
yes.
Okay.
So even though it's kind of administered by the commission, it is municipal property.
It's
municipal
owned
asset.
by the
Yeah.
township. Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? I just have a comment. I'm on parent council at Twin Lakes Secondary School, and I think this would be a great opportunity for students to get their volunteer hours because all of our feeder schools attend that high school. So I don't know when that kind of call would be put out, but that would be a good opportunity. Any other questions? All right. Let's vote then that we receive report ID 5624 and that we receive report ID 5624 Ramara tree planting in conjunction with the LSRCA, and that we authorize the Director of Infrastructure to permit the proposed planting on the municipal properties as shown in the attached planting plans. All in favor? That's passed. Is there any unfinished or new business? Go ahead, Councillor Goff.
Yeah, through the chair to Josh, can you give us an update on the effluent hauling from?
So the last data I got was just over a week ago. We're currently about 62,000 cubic meters of effluent hauled. We're hoping to haul 120,000 cubic meters. So that's that halfway, but weather is really going to depict how long we can haul. Our minimum haulage was 90,000 cubic meters. So we're well on the ways there. But yeah, weather is going to make or break how much we can haul this year. So.
Thanks. Yeah, go ahead.
What happens if weather stops us before we get to the 90?
So we have done a survey of the ponds to see if we have adequate storage for the winter months. We're just waiting on those numbers to come back. So it's looking like we're lower than we were this time last year, which is good, but that survey will confirm it. So.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
So how are we coming on the permits and for the new construction in the spring? Is it moving along? Have you started any kind of construction as far as stockpiling soil or anything like that?
We haven't started any of that because we were regulated to do a stage 3 archaeological assessment. That was completed just over a week ago. They are recommending a stage 4 now, but it is confined to the certain area where artifacts were found. As soon as we get that report, which is expected in February, we'll be able to start moving forward with everything else. So everything was sent to the MECP. We are still waiting on comment from the MECP. I don't want to start any work or planning of that work until we have confirmation from MECP as well. So.
Go ahead, Councillor Goff.
Is there any way we can maybe have that report sooner so that when we go to Roma, when we sit down we'll be informed?
I could get a draft report most likely, but not a finalized report. Yeah. If that's okay doing it that way.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Bell?
Thank you. I have a request. It actually came from a resident, and I did address this once earlier, probably 6 months or so back. And I just asked for an update on where county is with any kind of a project to look at assuming management of municipal drinking and wastewater services. And we just had sort of a verbal conversation that day. And I've had requests from residents if there's a potential that they could please have a full written report from with staff working with county just to talk about, is county you know, where does county sit? Are they halfway toward that decision? Is that decision even being considered? What if it were to be, you know, where are they with it? Is there any kind of timelines? Yeah, so I guess, you know, a staff report related to the potential for county assuming management of municipal services is what I'm looking for.
What I can do, if I may, what I could do is I could get the presentation we made to the comprehensive review. Unfortunately, it's not in county's hands. It's up to the Minister of Municipal Affairs when they do the County of Simcoe Municipal Review, where they're going with that. But why don't I get the presentation on our future council meeting of what we actually presented to them, where it says coordination of, we have to be very careful with the wording, coordination of sewer and water. And that's the presentation I made a year ago. Again, everything's in the hands of municipal affairs when they make a decision on the regional review, but certainly I can get that information over here and get it on a future council agenda.
Appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, unfinished or new business? No, seeing none. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And now we're on to administration and finance, Councillor Snatch.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have quite a few items today. The first one is 6.1, the adoption of the Couchiching OPP Detachment Board Terms of Reference. The recommendation is that we receive the report CD 2624 as information and that council adopt the Couchiching OPP Detachment Board Terms of Reference. Can I have someone put that on the floor? Thank you, Mr. Goff. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Any questions or comments? I see none. All in favor that we receive this as information? Passed. Item 6.2. Correspondence from the Couchiching OPP Detachment Board regarding top 3 strategic priorities Ramara would like to address. Recommendations that we received the correspondence from the Couchiching OPP Detachment Board regarding the top 3 strategic priorities Ramara would like to be addressed as information, and that our top 3 priorities for 2025 are. Can I have someone put that on the floor, please? Councillor Bell, followed by Councillor Goff. Questions and comments? Mr. Mayor.
We hear road safety's got to be up there. That's one we hear about all the time. Speeding, traffic control. So that would be our top, because I don't believe we have a lot of I mean, we certainly want them to prioritize with crime, but road safety is the big issue we have here. So that definitely needs to be on the list.
Do we have a second priority?
Put that, can we put that 3 times?
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I think with roads, just also specifying the use of non-motor or unlicensed and unplated vehicles on the roadways, because it's not just vehicles, it's definitely that piece of it. And then the other thing I was going to say, and I know it's not, we haven't had tons and tons of crime, but we have had a series of break-ins in Brecken. So I do think that maybe, and I know it's not massive amounts, but the break-ins that occurred were very, very costly to the local businesses. So I do think that that's probably a priority.
Property crime.
Property crime number 2. The third one that anyone would like to put forward. Deputy Mayor.
I think just engagement with our kids and I think that would be a key. It's just maybe making an appearance at schools or projects that include kids.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Yes, to top up on the deputy mayor, I was thinking that too, because we're missing out on like boot camps, coffee with a cop, they'll say, and I know when I've talked about it, even with the officer I speak with, the challenge is sometimes where to do it. But I think we do have the opportunity to do it even at our community centers or the Legion or whatever it is. So I think I would totally agree with that.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? So if I can do the fill in the blank here, that we received the correspondence and our top 3 priorities for 2025 are road safety, property crime, and OPP engagement with residents, including kids. All in favor? Passed. Item 6.3, transfers from reserves, that the following amounts be transferred out of the reserve to cover unbudgeted 2024 expenditures. $16,315 to fund the beach revitalization project at Lovely Day Park from the Athlete Community Center Board Reserve. $3,685 to fund the electrical project at Lovely Day Park from the Athlete Community Center Board Reserve. And finally, $8,053.55 to fund the 2024 by-election from the election reserve. Can I have someone put that on the floor? That's
Can I make an amendment? An
well,
amendment?
we gotta
to
get
that?
it. Don't we have to get it on
Put
first?
floor? But
So if you're gonna make the amendment, I'll go this way first. So it's put on the floor by the mayor and second by the deputy mayor.
can I amend that to also include the permit for the Lake Simcoe Regional Conservation Authority for Lovely Days Park Armor Rock project? The permit was finally issued and paid for, and I think it was $765.
$765.
Can I ask for that to be included?
You can.
And
It wasn't included in the 16,000?
that's what I was.
Okay, so then we do, yeah.
The permit, the
Lake
application of the
Simcoe
permit to
Regional
Lake
Conservation
Simcoe.
Authority.
Any other comments, questions?
The mover and seconder are fine with that, then it can just be done that way. And we're both fine with it, so it will be added.
Okay, so there'll be four things and we'll include this 765. All in favor? Passed. Item 6.4 is the municipal insurance pool startup with Simple County municipalities. Recommendation that we receive report TR 1224 as information and that council requests a presentation from Axima for further information. Can I have someone put it on the floor? That's the Councillor Goff, Councillor Bell. Questions, comments? All in favor? Passed. 6.5, compressed work week update, December 2024. That we receive report AD 2524, compressed work week update, dated December 2024 as information, and that we endorse HR policy number 217, compressed work week. Can I have someone put that on the floor, please? Councillor Tu, second by the deputy mayor. Questions, comments? Okay, all in favor? Passed. 6.6, a bylaw to repeal and replace bylaw 2017.18 as amended for fees and charges. Recommendation that we receive CD 2824 regarding proposed amendments to the fees and charges bylaw, and that the bylaw be forwarded to council for adoption. Can I have someone put that on the floor, please? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Second by Councillor Goff. Questions or comments? All in favor? Passed. Item number 6.7, 2024 Annual Accessibility Status Report, CD 2924. Recommendations is that the 2024 Annual Accessibility Status Report attached to CD 2924 be adopted as presented, and that the 2024 accessibility expenditure estimated at $11,750 be financed from the accessibility reserve. Can I have someone put that on the floor for me? Thank you. Councillor Tu and the mayor second it. Questions or comments? Councillor Goff.
Yeah, during our break from our previous meeting, I had a phone call from the chair of the library board, and I must have missed it or I haven't seen it and I've gone through it. She was saying that we wanted to close the Brecken branch. What was it? I didn't see it.
I remember reading it.
Or I'm not in favor of closing the
Was it an accessibility issue? Is what I'm thinking it is. Amber might have, sorry, Mr. Chair, but Amber may have an answer to that.
Through your chair, there is a recommendation that it be closed until such time that the building becomes compliant. There are significant issues with the building at the Brecken Ballpark that were addressed by the consultant. And they don't meet AODA compliance, and they were not budgeted for to work on for the 2025 deadline. So that has been recommended by staff.
Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting.
See, this is the trouble. If you're not fully accessible, you can actually.
Nobody's
charge.
accessible.
Yeah, or accessible, and that's so take the service away. If you can't provide an accessible way is basically the law of the land, is it not? Yeah.
Councillor Goff.
So we have an alternative? If we're gonna close that?
It's not an alternative. It's actually requested in here, isn't it? I mean, it's part of what they're asking for.
Well, I just think there should be
We'll put an amendment on, yeah.
but I don't know what alternative we have or a place where we can go.
Possibly.
Mr. Mayor.
The old sewer and can we trade places with Aqua, the old building that we used to use for sewer and water? It is accessible. Is there an option there, or are they're fully entrenched there?
They're entrenched there and it's leased to them. I think we're in contract lease with them. Sorry.
Right.
Councillor Bell.
I mean, I have not discussed this at all with the Lagoon City Community Association or Center, so I don't want anyone to, anybody who's listening, I'm not making assumptions. But I wonder if the community center does have space, and they do have a little library section there. Now, it would obviously have to be around their schedule, so you'd probably still have limited hours, but you have limited hours at the Brecken building right now anyway. So I wonder if there's potential that staff would be able to reach out to Lagoon City Community Association and see if there's a potential to use some space, you know, once weekly or twice weekly or whatever that schedule is right now at Brecken Ballpark, and still have something in the south part of the township.
Deputy Mayor.
I'm just wondering if it's a good suggestion that Councillor Bell put it. Maybe we just put it back to staff and see if there's some alternative options and start to look at them.
Why don't you put it down the floor, approve everything except for closing the facility and let staff look at alternatives?
I'll put it forward.
Okay, that's the amendment, and second by Councillor Goff. Councillor Bell, you have something else to add?
Just, I'm concerned about not closing it if we're being told to close it, because we could be putting ourselves in a bad position if we do that. That's the only thing. So I think I think we have to follow the recommendation and look for the alternative, just so that we don't get ourselves in hot water.
I'm fine with that amendment to the motion, that we'll close as recommended, but continue looking for an alternative space.
Well, that doesn't need an amendment because that's exactly what it says right now, I believe. Councillor Goff.
I guess this is directed towards probably Amber, since she's the knowledgeable one on this. It says 2025. When in 2025 does it have to close?
Through your chair, the deadline is January 1st, 2025 to meet AODA compliance.
All right, so the amendment is off the table and we're back to the original motion, which is recommendation that 2024 accessibility expenditures estimated 11,750 be financed from the accessibility reserve. All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Bell.
But there is still an amendment, because just the amendment is that staff look for an alternative location for the Brecken branch of the library.
And bring it back to us January 6th.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll be the 6th, but we can ask for the 6th.
You got that, Jen?
Meeting.
Okay, all in favor? Passed. Is there any unfinished or new business?
On that last one, the mover and seconder were fine with the amendment, so.
Unfinished or new business? Yes, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. So with the council information package, I know that there was a gap when we hadn't been maybe receiving that package. And I know since some staff has come back, because I know we were maybe missing staff a little bit there for a while. And we have the complement of staff back, but we don't actually have a policy on our council information package. And if we do, I didn't find it when I searched. But I did search other municipalities, and it seems relatively commonplace that there is for townships that have council information packages. They also have a policy that defines what the package is and what it looks like. And I think that sometimes our agendas are very heavy, and today's a good example where we have 3 meetings and some of the matters are relatively complicated, and without us having information ahead of time or in, you know, you can set them up different ways, and we may not need reams and reams of paper, but even if we had links provided to us that help us have a better sense of some of the things that are on the agenda. So I don't know how far we want to go with it today, because I'm just presenting it to everybody as a new topic of conversation. So I do have a motion ready that I could put on the floor, but I don't want to just put it on the floor without affording the opportunity for any kind of conversation. So I just think that with us having updated our procedure bylaw, which we'll be passing later today, it would be the right time to also make sure that we have a policy on the council information package, so that it speaks to the accountability, transparency, but moreover, it's about the Municipal Act and allowing council to be able to execute their duties based on having all the information they need by the time we get in this room and sit down. So I'm just putting it out there for discussion. I'm perfectly willing to put my motion on the floor, but if I didn't want to just assume to do that without hearing any opinions around the table.
I have a question for Mr. Dunn. Do you have a policy regarding consent items? Council information package?
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe there is. I believe there's a practice. Certainly what Councillor Bell raised has been shared with me previously by Councillor Bell. I did speak to the clerk last week, and certainly that was one of the things from a consideration perspective, whether it's clarifying the practice or putting it in place with a policy. Certainly understand the importance of trying to ensure all members of council get as much information as possible to make an informed decision. Understand that clearly.
Mr. Mayor.
So would it be suffice if, again, we're loading up the January 6th meeting, but if we had a staff report on to come, and then with suggestions on our, like, and have it on a future committee of the whole, so we can discuss our council information package and what's allowed on it, or what should be included, and how it's distributed, so that could come in the committee of the whole in January.
That's fine.
If we move that to.
Yes, and I will send the little bit of research I did to the clerk, as well as the motion that I had ready, just so that they have some of where I'm coming from when they're working with the staff report.
So I would move along with Councillor Bell that it be forwarded to a discussion at a future committee of the whole. With a staff report.
Is there any other unfinished or new business? Oh, sorry. All in favor? Passed. Any, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. Yes. And the second one is along the same lines. And when we were doing the procedure bylaw, we talked about jurisdiction and what does jurisdiction mean? And so the piece that's on the procedure bylaw talks about who chairs which portion of a meeting, but we don't have a definition of our jurisdictions within each of the portfolios, which again is fairly commonplace from what I can understand looking at other townships. So it would kind of be 2 pieces, I think, on that report, separate reports, because they may take different timelines, but the same idea. So I did not prepare a motion for that one. Because I thought the very first thing would be a staff report that just talks about jurisdiction and what it means. So what the duties of the council member inside that jurisdiction is, more than that you chair a meeting, because clearly we're all out doing things in the community. And just to clarify, what does the jurisdiction mean? So again, I would just be asking for that staff report. But maybe not for January 6th, because it seems like an awful lot to ask for that quickly. Could be another month down the road or something like that would be more appropriate.
Yeah,
Can come to a March meeting, perhaps, your worship?
Committee of the whole is where we'd have the discussion. Yeah. No, I'll second that, and we'll have a discussion on what it is. Yep.
before we vote, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just if I could have a little more granularity on the intent of jurisdiction. Certainly, I now understand how Ramara Township works regarding the liaison responsibilities. Could you just 30 nanoseconds or more, Councillor Bell, just so I understand exactly where you're headed regarding jurisdiction.
Thank you. Yes. So when I looked at, I'm going to use an urban example just because it's easier. But if I looked at, say, what the person does who is infrastructure, and it was Hamilton, they were sitting on any committees that were related to safety or expansion of new roadways or expansion of lanes on a roadway or any of those kinds of things on that whole Red Hill Expressway, let's say. So the jurisdiction defined, you will sit on the appropriate committees related to that portfolio, and that you would attend the appropriate, seminars or conferences. I know there's financial pieces of it, but and so that's why it's very early and we need a staff report. But it just more clearly defining what does the role mean if you're assigned that portfolio? What is the expectation that residents can have of what you're going to do in that job?
My opinion on that is it's discretionary, because other than that, sitting as the liaison of finance, I can basically sit on every single board because every single one involves money. So I think the discretionary, and you have to basically look at each situation. That would be the same as me not being allowed to be on the open pool detachment board because I don't fall under whatever the category would be, protective services. So I'm not in favor of it. Go ahead.
No, I think we're gonna have a wholesome discussion, but if that's the parameters we're looking at, right now, we define them only as that's a part of the meeting that you chair. So the discussion will be, do we want to expand the portfolios to actual have? So that, I think that's, because we're not gonna discuss it today, that's when it comes back, that's what the discussion would be around, is what I'm assuming. And I'm just looking for the CEO to, if he's got any other concern.
Councillor Bell, go in, and I just have a summation.
Thank you. Yeah. So just to Councillor Snutch's point, it's not about restriction. It's just about definition, because right now we don't have one. We don't know what jurisdiction means because we have not defined it. So that's it just, there needs to be, because people would ask, well, what do you do? And I have to say, I don't know. There's no definition that says what protective services does. It could be, I suppose, anything I want it to be, but that does not lean into accountability. It doesn't say this council member is responsible for these things, or, would report back on these things.
Mr. Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and members of council. When we conclude today's council meeting, we've got a short closed session update regarding the CIO mandate. Councillor Bell, it's like you reviewed my notes for the session this afternoon. So please remember this conversation, and certainly Ms. Connor and I have the intent of what needs to come back, but it meshes, I would suggest, Ms. Connor, very nicely with some of the comments that I wanted to share this afternoon.
All right. So Councillor Goff, you have something, or? Well, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out where we are then. So this was under unfinished and new business. Maybe you can recap there, Councillor Bell.
Thank you. So I think the motion is just for a staff report to be returned at the March Committee of the Whole regarding council jurisdictions or portfolio jurisdictions.
All right, all in favor? Passed. Any other unfinished or new business? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Just wanted at county, we had a lot of letters come in regarding letters addressing the Attorney General and different people regarding the policing increase this year. I think that wouldn't be a terrible thing for us to send in and just find out how this can be prevented in futures. We can't predict a 26 or 23 or 32. Some people hit a 30% increase in their levies. I think we need to look at that and at least address it with the province and ask, why this happened and how can it be prevented?
Before I go to Councillor Goff and Councillor Bell, I've been reading, and I just haven't seen the whole story yet, about the province subsidizing some of those increases. Like, do you know where we are on that, or?
There's a letter on our council agenda.
Right, but it
regarding
doesn't, that's what I'm referring to, but it doesn't say how are they subsidizing the municipalities?
Mr. Mayor, through you to Mr. Chairman, the answer is complicated. The treasurer and I are not in a position to be able to say definitively what that number is. They laid out the methodology to determine what the support would be. whatever that number in aggregate is, when we deal with matters in council, it's suggested to put that into the policing, back into the policing reserve. And it will take some time to be able to validate what that number will be.
Mr. Mayor, before we go any further, do I have a conflict sitting on the OPP detachment board?
You're appointed by council.
Yep. Councilor Goff. Oh, Councilor Bell. Any, sorry, Councilor Bell, can you repeat what you said so we can vote on?
I just thought that we should send a letter in just on behalf of the township to I guess the Attorney General or whoever everybody else is sending them to. I had a list of them anyways from county, but
Is there a need to do that now, Deputy Mayor? If they've already made a decision.
right now they've done that, but I still think, Councilor Goff, that I think they need to be a little more responsible in how they give us the information. I mean, this is one time, but it's supposed to happen another 2 or 3 years from now. It's not preventing that from happening again. So I think there just has to be more transparency.
Mr. Dunn.
Mr. Chairman, if that is the direction of committee, perhaps the correspondence could be written in a two-part process. Deputy, thank you for the acknowledgement from the province on this issue. And then put the other pieces at the back end of the letter under the mayor's signature.
Just from my point of view, sitting on the OPP board, what we're doing, what I can, you collect all that information, what everybody wants is more policing, more policing, more policing, more policing. I think you have to be, you more policing is more costs. We're the ones that are driving it. So I think we have to send a message to them, which is basically, it's the unexpected. But we certainly aren't requesting cuts, are we?
No, I don't think we're expecting any kind of a decrease in services, and I don't think we were receiving any additional services at the time of this increase. So I think it's more or less just the communication transparency.
All right. So, Jen, have you got that then?
I've written that we send a letter to the Attorney General expressing concern regarding the high cost of policing and the 2025 increment.
All in favor? Passed. Any other unfinished or new business? Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Culture and Recreation, Deputy Mayor.
There's nothing on the agenda this week or this month. Anybody have any unfinished or new business?
Sorry, may I ask who seconded that last motion? I know it was placed on the table by. Oh, thank you.
Any unfinished or new business for culture and recreation? Not seeing any. Back to you, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. Planning services. Unfortunately, Councillor Fisher is having some medical issues, and I hope she gets well soon. So I will take this portion of the meeting that we receive. Report BP 64-24 is information, and that's our official plan. Moved by Councillor Goff, second by Councillor Tuyu. Questions involving the official plan? I know we had a lot of comments came from from some of our quarries, and they will be responded to, I would assume.
Yes.
All right. So if there's no other comments at this time, all in favor? That is carried. Next, I have a Ramara Landscape Quarry that we received. The Ramara Landscape Quarry circulation letter, site plan and planning comments for information, and the communication be forwarded to the applicant and the Minister of Natural Resources. So moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Goff. Questions are either one of the files I couldn't open, which was the actual first one. I don't have that reader. And I don't have access to put it on my computer. Councillor Bell.
No, and actually I tried to then download and then County blocks you when you're trying to download. And then I said to my spouse, because he has different kinds of software, can you try to open it? And so he did use like a Bluebeam software, but it ends up being an email between two people. So there's nothing secret there. It's just an internal email from one person to the other saying, here's the information for these planning comments. So it's kind of a strange thing. But it did make it hard because we don't have any of the planning comments. So I don't know how to do this today because it's an awful lot of information.
Yeah, so and that was my concern. So if that takes care of what that one is, yeah, we can't add any apps to these computers because they're county technology. They have to add the apps. A lot of information here. Jen, can you give us a sum up?
Mr. Mayor, could Mr. Zachary just provide
Ollie?
high level
Yeah.
clarity?
Yes, so the planning department provided comments regarding this ERO to the clerk for further consideration. This is just to bring awareness that this is a circulation that's come from the province that requires comment from staff.
Okay. Any other questions from council? All in favor of receiving? And that the communication be forwarded? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So any unfinished or new business under planning? Not, so then I will go on to transportation services, Councillor Goff. I should have asked the question earlier. If we didn't approve the expense for the election, does that mean Councillor Goff would have to leave?
I don't think that's the case, your worship.
Oh, okay, well, carry on.
You're trying to get rid of me again, eh? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two items on the agenda. First item is item 9.1 MacArthur Side Road Speed and Traffic Report, ID 55-24. Recommendation that we receive report ID 54-24 speed and traffic counts on MacArthur Side Road as information. Can I have somebody put that on the floor for me? Deputy Mayor, Councillor Snutch. Any discussion on it?
A question, what class of road is it now? It's class 4, is it not?
Yeah, it's a class 4 and it doesn't change. So,
And what is the next level? What would the?
so next would be class 3. The easiest way to bring it to a class 3 would be increase the speeds on it.
Okay, so it's just the speed that's preventing.
It's speed and the average annual daily traffic, but to go to a class 3 with a 60-kilometer-hour road, essentially you have to hit, I believe it's 2,000 vehicles a day.
Okay, 2,000 a day. Okay.
So to go from 400 to 2,000, that's a big jump.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Josh.
Any further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Item 9.2 is Lagoon City Community Mailboxes. Recommendation that we receive report ID 57-24 and correspondence with Canada Post as information. Can I have somebody put that on the floor? Councillor Bell and Deputy Mayor Bell. I'm Councillor Bell. You had to go to you.
Thank you. So I have a whole historical that started long before me. So I know from former councillor Hetherington, he had opened up a conversation with Canada Post, and the vein of his conversation was around, can you build a structure? And so he learned previous to 2022 that you cannot build a structure. And I'm not sure that it was wanted in that area anyway because of Lakeview and that sort of thing. But then I also learned that former councillor Johnson had been in conversation, and then former councillor Kaler before that. So we're looking at a decade or more. And then over the past 2 years, we carried the motion in early 2023. It started to get talked about again in the fall of 2023. During the 2024 early time period, and when we were down at Roma, I was able to actually take my phone and show Canada Post representatives the social media that was happening because people could not access their mailboxes in real time while we were standing there. And throughout these 2 years, we've also learned that those mailboxes are defunct and have been for like 2 decades. So I don't think that a no answer is an answer. The other thing that's happened too is for a number of years now, the businesses in the area of the Simcoe Road mailboxes have been doing their own snow clearance because they just don't clear those at all. So that business owner continued, 2 of them continued to clear the snow in that area. And then ultimately what happened was Canada Post the next time came and admonished them and said, we don't like where you filed it. And the business owners said, but we've been left to clear it ourselves for 10 years or 15 or whatever it is. So long and short of it, I did go look for the Canada Postal service charter, and the service charter says that council can resolve that we want to go through the ombudsman process because we have been trying to get a resolution for 20 years and it doesn't seem to be forthcoming. So my approach is I have written a motion that I would put on the floor that we can resolve then to access the ombudsman process and try to get this thing taken care of.
Okay. I'll see if there's any other comments and I'll
Yeah.
come back to you. Any other comments from Mr.
Well,
Wayne?
yeah, what they're saying in their letter is they've received no complaints. And that just, we've been copied on. Now, I could understand if people were complaining to us and not Canada Post, but we've been actually copied on information that's been sent to Canada Post.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is not correct.
Any other comments? You want to put your motion on the floor?
And actually there's been slips too, you know, and people have been injured. So I think it's time. So I will read the motion. Whereas Canada Post is mandated under the Canadian Postal Service Charter to provide a standard of postal service that meets the needs of Canadians, including rural and urban communities, individuals and businesses in a fair, transparent and financially self-sustaining manner. And whereas the charter obligates Canada Post to establish accessible and effective complaint resolution processes to address service deficiencies in a fair, respectful and timely manner. And whereas Section 17 of the charter provides for escalation of its unresolved complaints to the Canada Post Ombudsman for investigation. And whereas the Township of Ramara has concerns about postal service deficiencies where satisfactory resolution through Canada Post internal complaint resolution processes has not been achieved. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Ramara formally initiates a complaint to the Canada Post Ombudsman citing non-compliance with the Canada Postal Service Charter, and that the municipality submits all documented complaints, correspondence, and evidence of unresolved issues to the Ombudsman. Probably should take that out. And staff be directed to prepare and file the necessary documentation to ensure the ombudsman process is properly initiated and monitored, and that a copy of this resolution be sent to Member of Parliament for Simcoe North and the Minister of Public Services and Procurement and any relevant municipal associations advocating for rural and urban postal service improvements.
I just like to make a motion to, or just to amend that motion to simplify it, that we're going to approach or recommend that staff maybe do a report. I don't think we can direct staff. That's my issue with that, Councillor Bell. I'm in support of it 100%. I just think that it needs to be a very simplified motion that will take that approach.
Thank you. I mean, I think that's part of, we don't provide enough clarity to staff, and that's the feedback that we've received from staff via the CAO, is that when we are doing motions that are not inclusive of all of the direction, then staff doesn't know how to act on our motions, and it has actually caused us to bring the same things back to the floor. And I mean, the Canada Post is a great example because it was carried in 23 and then carried again in 24 because there was confusion about what was going to get done with it. Infrastructure actually wasn't even part of the conversation in the initial, whereas it's infrastructure who needed to be able to talk about the different responsibilities on the clearance and snow clearance in that area. So I think that generally speaking, we need to do a better job of how we write our motions. So as you will have noticed today, I've gone to the process of making sure that I lay them out in common to how you would see motions written in other municipalities. So that's why it's inclusive. And I would like to leave it inclusive so that we are clear with our direction to staff.
I will not support that then. I think at this point in time, staff are aware of what the procedure will be, and it'll be laid out by the ombudsman, what has to be provided to them. So they know what has to be done. And so I will not support it as it stands.
Okay, Mr. Mayor.
Why don't we send the motion to the committee of the whole in January and have a look at it, and we can get comments. And because I mean, this has been going on for years, so then we can actually see it in writing and read it prior to the meeting if we're fine with that.
So what we can do, we can receive this report ID 5724's information. And then what we'll do is we'll put the Councillor Bell's motion on a committee of the whole meeting in January.
Yep. Okay. What I heard, I like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is
I'll follow this.
the seconder okay with that? I think it was Deputy Mayor Bell. That's okay. All in favor? That is carried. Anything else? New or unfinished business? Wait a second. Maybe. We're waiting for Councillor Bell.
No, I'll do it second.
Okay.
Just an inquiry with all the snow we had a week ago in Muskoka having an emergency. Did we lend any equipment? Were they, or we were good here, but
Yes, we were good here. I contacted Gravenhurst and offered some equipment, but they preferred to keep our equipment here in case we needed it. As a last resort, we'd send anything up, but they didn't require anything from us. So.
Thank you.
Further to that, I know our Director of Infrastructure was up there evacuating cars that were stuck on the highway by snowmobile, so commendable for your effort in helping out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have no closed session, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn at 12:22 p.m. Moved by Councillor Goff, second by Councillor Tuyu. All in favor? That is carried. So we have a council meeting with, well, I'm going to say probably we'll break for lunch. So 1 o'clock. How long do you need to be in camera? We'll do the in camera first. Half an hour?
Mr. Mayor, can I just please check with the deputy on how much time she need, not the deputy mayor, the deputy clerk. There's a set of notes, minutes that are required. I don't know that 35 minutes is adequate, perhaps quarter after, Mr. Mayor?
And that'll be for the in camera. So we would,
Okay.
and then when we'd need, because you're going to need time to prepare everything for the actual council meeting. I just want for the folks at home, because they can't join the in camera. When would you think 2 o'clock? Is that too far?
Madam Clerk, we're 15 minutes enclosed.
15. So one.
Ms. Connor? Oh, hang on, Mr. Mayor. Pardon me.
I just want to make sure staff is everything ready for when we go public here at 1:30. So then we'll reconvene in camera at 1 o'clock, but then 1:30 will be the actual public meeting when we come back live to everybody. Okay, with that, thank you.